Now, I want you to take a look. Watch your screen here. Have a look at this video. What do you see? Well, looks like perfectly innocent stuff. Two loved-up youngsters dancing under the stars without a worry in the world. Sure, we've all been there once. Well, that all changed when the pair posted the video on social media, only to be met with a hefty jail sentence of 10.5 years. Why? Well, because the truth is, their lives, rather than being carefree, were already riddled with worries because of the country they live in, Iran. In this clip, the Astiyaz Haghighi and his fiancé are dancing in a main square of the capital of Tehran, the woman dancing without a headscarf. Each was charged with the crime of spreading corruption and vice, and assembly and collusion with the intention of disrupting national security. Now, joining me now to talk about this and what Australia can help do about it is Liberal Senator for Tasmania, Claire Chandler. Senator, thank you so much. Tell us a bit more about this horrifying story.
Well, horrifying is exactly the word for it, James. And the way that this innocent couple has been treated in Iran, being arrested and sentenced to jail for 10 years, is just the latest action in a string of brutal actions by the regime in Iran. And it's a regime that no government should be associating itself with. I certainly think that the Australian government needs to be doing more to take a very strong stand against the regime in Iran. And that's why this week the Senate committee that I chair, the Foreign Affairs, Defence and Trade References Committee, issued a report outlining a series of actions that we think that the Australian government needs to take so that it can take a stronger stance against Iran.
And indeed, we have to really put this, too, into the context of the bigger problem happening within Iran. I mean, since the beating and death of 22-year-old Iranian woman Mahsa Amini by Iranian police, there have been nearly 500 people killed that we know about by security forces over the past 4 months. What is the situation now there, Claire Chandler, and is there an end in sight? Does the regime show any sign of weakness, or are they hoping that the world's attention will focus on Ukraine or something else, and they're going to get away with literal murder of their people?
Yeah, that's a great question, James. And look, all of the submissions and the evidence that we were hearing through the course of our inquiry, which was effectively initiated following the death of Mahsa Amini and the inaction of the government in calling the Iranian regime to account, the evidence that we heard is that this isn't merely a flash in the pan, that there are genuine uprisings, like you say, within Iran, and that the next generation are very cognizant of what is happening. They are shocked at what is happening to innocent people in Iran, and they are going to protest the regime when and where they can. But we also know that this is a regime that will do anything that they can to quell those protests, whether it's quelling them in Iran, and we've seen the police force that has been used, or the police brutality, quite frankly, that has been used to target those protesters there, or whether it is conducting foreign interference exercises in Australia, which we know that they've been doing, trying to monitor Iranians in Australia who are protesting. So this is a very volatile and a very scary situation. And I think that all Iranians, whether they are in Iran or our wonderful Iranian Australian diaspora community here, are incredibly brave in standing up to this regime.
And finally, Claire Chandler, you've been on a bipartisan committee, and they've published a report very critical of the government's action, or rather inaction, on this whole issue. Now, what do you think the Albanese government needs to do? What action needs to be taken?
Well, really all the Albanese government needs to do is get in step with our international allies who have been doing so much more on this front than we have. Our government needs to be more broadly applying Magnitsky sanctions, which our allies have done months before we did and more broadly than we did. And we need to be very upfront about the fact that the IRGC is a terrorist organisation. We need to be doing everything that we can within our power in Australia to be calling it out as such and designating it as such brush under legislation. There are a whole raft of other things that committee recommended, including very critically examining the foreign interference accusations that have come out of the inquiry and looking at what presence the regime might have here in Australia and how that presence might be being used to intimidate our Iranian diaspora. But yes, look, lots more that the government could be doing on this front, and fundamentally we just need to get in alignment with our allies, the United Kingdom, Canada, the United States. All of these countries have done far much more and far sooner on Iran, and I'm quite frankly puzzled as why our government hasn't been getting into action sooner.
Claire Chandler, that is a great mystery, and we'd love to have you back on to talk about this another time, but we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us.